All right. Chelsea and I are fresh out of a kerfluffle, the prickly parts in relating with humans and being human. And so this isn't a perfectly put together conversation, but I just thought this is right out of it. And then we sat this morning and we just had this amazing discovery of what we found and put new pieces together. And it's kind of funny as I'm saying this out loud, it reminds me that, or it makes me feel like, gosh, like we have so much discovery in the prickliness that it's like, oh gosh, I'm kind of hoping for the next prickliness, which is not really what you want, but in a way it's like, oh my gosh, I'm feeling this blessing from this. So to give a little bit of context to people that don't know, Chelsea and I are together as partners, and we both understand very clearly what we want to accomplish in life individually. We're both on a conscious path, meaning that like if somebody else weren't in a conscious path, they would not fit with us, and we just know that that's just the easiest thing. We know where we're going. A conscious path can be making the unconscious conscious. It can be moving to love, all the beautiful things, being in flow, being in cahoots with what it is we're finding and discovering. It's about enjoying the experience of being human. And so that's like our carrot for that's some of the bounds of what we take. And what we discovered this morning, after kind of having a rough day yesterday, was that along the way, we drifted over lines of where the parameters were in us personally. And so we discovered this morning that we need to be sticking to the rules that we set for each other and with each other, and understand those rules. And then when the kerfluffles come up, the prickly comes up, like just recently happened, it's like we got to look back and we need to refine and distill and understand this is where we're at. And here's lines and get back into that. And we're understanding that the rules of the game are very important. And it's about, Chelsea had a good one about changing the idea of love the game, and you don't need to worry about whether you love the player or hate the player. It's like, love the game first, because the game sets the rules. So it's like, if in chess, if you were to cheat or do something or outside the rules of chess, you're literally not playing chess anymore. It's just not that. But we lose track in the daily life, of the rules and the guidelines within it. And that might sound constricting, but it's actually very freeing, and hopefully that will show itself in this video. Go for it.
And part of discovering that these boundaries or rules to the game, the boundaries to the game kind of thing, is consciousness and is constantly evolving and expanding. And because we are on a conscious path, these things are everything. We are constantly reinterpreting, new interpretations. This is a living thing that's going on. So these are not static. The rule is to the letter, and then like it's set in stone. No, that's not what we're saying. We're saying that there's going to be expansions and adjustments and things, but just having them, not flailing about. And then one of the things, like for me, I'll have an understood rule with James about something, and then I've changed the rule for myself inside, and I've never and then I don't communicate it with them. So then people are changing rules on each other, and so we're discovering how to best set ourselves up for a great experience.
So where do we jump off from there? It was discovering the rules of the game, and where it was interesting because it's so here's the example that came back up to me. It was something I applied to my own life years ago when I learned psychology. And I can understand this so much better now, is that society really set up the perfect psychological game with four-way stops. So if you understand the rules of who's supposed to go, like when you meet somebody at the exact same time, whatever else, all the rules are set up psychologically for an interdependent. So being that if we give too much, the codependent, if we take too much, the narcissist perspective, what we're shooting for in psychology is what's called interdependency, where we're all following the paths. And you can understand if you've driven and you've been to four-way stops, you can see when things get clinky, and so that's exactly what happens so I felt like I had this line that had been really, really established. And yet over the course of a couple of months, it I like it seemed like there was the boundary was being pushed. But I'm an easygoing person. Chelsea's an easygoing person. And so it's like, yeah, but do I say something in this moment? Do I say something? And then we could just recognize that it just kept happening and kept happening until the universe just puts together all the big pieces and just shows us, oh, you guys weren't paying attention to this line. Neither one of us were paying attention to this line well enough and managing the line that it caused a discombobulation or a non-calibration. So we weren't being interdependent with each other. We were giving and taking, and nobody. That's
No.
the beautiful thing is, but nobody's at fault. Where it doesn't matter if
Yeah.
you're in the codependent position or the narcissist position, the taker or the giver, you're still really a taker. And because you have to take the thing. If you are you have to give yourself away to do that. So you have to take the pain or the suffering or whatever else. So go ahead.
I was just going to use an example that just made it real easy. When we're interdependent and our communications then consistent and continuous, it's always there. So had I been in a stronger position, I would have saw that his line had some wobbliness to it, and I would have then asked, hey, is this are we reinterpreting this line? Instead, I reinterpret myself. So this is how this is just an example of how that happens, So then I reinterpret it myself, and then it's not been reestablished. And so then there's miscommunication, there's kerfluffles. It's just, it all comes down again to communication.
So so the guidance system that Chelsea and I are working on is seating ourselves and giving attention to is the emotional guidance system. So we're setting up rules to that game so that we understand, because what we have found through life and everything else is that our emotional state is going to be what's making decisions. And we're finding that when we aren't operating from emotions, but we're operating from feelings, and we've made those conscious, we are in a great place to share our discoveries with one another. That's the thing, is that this lensafarian thing is we discovered that it was like a frequency that we found, was that we would get into these long circular conversations that wouldn't go anywhere because we weren't weren't calibrated to neutral. This is the rule: neutral or buoyant to share. Now that isn't a fast hard rule, but it is a fast hard rule that, or at least within myself, and I think within Chelsea, is to know our inner state, and that's the thing we're responsible for, and that's the thing we're responsible for sharing with the other person. Listen, if you are coming from a place of fear, sadness, and emotion, you can, if Chelsea was doing that, it's not that she can't share, but she can say, I'm not in the right place, but I want to be able to share these words that want to come out. But that just tells me, okay, whatever's coming out is going to be the first take. We have something else we're going to share with you about that, which is brilliant. And this is what Chelsea shared, and then we just applied it to this, and it's just it's amazing. So speaking about this buoyancy, this neutral buoyancy. I'm just going to tell a little anecdote to help. Yesterday it was like we have everything kind of, it takes a lot to get. We're both very easygoing. We do not live with a lot of anxiety, a lot of fear, or anything like that. So it takes a lot to rattle us. And so, the universe puts us in a place where we're traveling. It's stressful, finding a place. It was windy. We've got our own things going on. And this just added all of these things to the fire and put us in this position where it was really tough to get to that neutral or buoyant in order to share with the other person. So this was just a funny anecdote from myself. So I drove into town, and Chelsea wanted some solar lights. And they didn't have the particular solar lights that they wanted. They had more expensive ones. And I'm like, okay, well, this is from the dollar store, so they could be really cheap, and they're more expensive. Do I want to? And so I'm sitting there. She's telling me I want 6 of these things. And I'm like, 6? In my head, I'm going 6. But I checked in with myself, and I realized that I was also hungry on top of all that other stuff that I said. So I was hangry, if that's the way you want to say it. So I knew I was below buoyancy. So I wasn't going to allow that to establish. I was like, she said, get them, she'll pay for them. And I was like, I'm going to get them. And then soon after I ate lunch and I got to the neutral buoyancy, then the thoughts that arose from that were like, oh, these are actually cool colors. They're mushrooms. This could be really fun. And it was like, I just had to discover, or I just had to be in the right place within myself, within my emotional guidance system, in order for these beautiful thoughts. And so when we're having these prickly conversations and stuff, we're mindful about where we are.
And allowing, allowing us to express ourselves.
Okay, yes. But to express ourselves with the most potent point. And so that's this new discovery that for me, it's a new discovery. This is something that Chelsea's been working on. But we're finding these really funny things about the connection with acting, theater, whatever you want, that are so applicable to life and so helpful. Like, one of our things is that if we get into any kind of just small little prickly things, and we can just see that both of us just know it's not going anywhere, the one that maybe had started the prickliness can just go, end scene, and we both can be done with it.
End scene,
and it's over. So Chelsea brought up this idea of mistakes, and in my head, and I've got all this philosophy, do we really make mistakes? And, can we make a mistake along the way? And so Chelsea brought this up to me, and I'm just like, I don't know if I want to believe in that kind of stuff. I don't know. And I said, explain what you mean by it. And her explanation did it. Do you want to give the explanation of what you said?
Oh, go ahead, Ned.
Okay. So her idea was mistake. And I still was like, what are you talking about? So if you are on a movie set, they say, take 1. And then they shoot that take. And then if they don't do it right, they'll take 2. So a mistake is just a is just a take that didn't produce the results that we want.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, wow. Like, then I just started thinking about like the fact that we're all kind of writing this script within reality, this story as we're writing it. And it's like, can we look at everything from the point of view of these events, these things that are happening are just takes.
Mm-hmm.
And the ones where it gets where the prickly comes up in our life, we can look at them. And lensafarianism, and we'd say, okay, we're at neutral. If something happens from the place of making a choice or thoughts or whatever else from lower than neutral or buoyant, then it's something to look at. Like, because like what is actually happening in that time. And it's like, okay, so we can then relens it and say, okay, we had a take there, but now that I've grown, I've become a better writer of my story is another way to say it.
Exactly.
It's like, can we take another take?
Can I have a retake? It's like being able to give each other honor to writing that script. You fall, they talk about success as the ability to fall forwards or fail forward. And it's kind of that in a way, because it's like, just, okay, can I have a retake? Okay, I made a misstep, or I put my foot in my mouth. Can I redo that after I've taken a look and lensafarified this? There's all those approaches that we can give each other honor and space, and the ability to do that, and it's fun.
Yes, and it works for all of the, like, the thing that happened, the kind of one of the kerfuffles that happened within the last few days. I recognized that I acted, or I responded or reacted out of anger. Now I can look at the situation and say it was necessary from the point of view of when it happened. But when I look at it, it's like I'm just looking at it, that anger, the unconscious anger was a part of the point, and I'm not going to be mad about it. I'm not trying to change that. It's just recognizing that was what happened in that moment. And it's this faith inside me that knows that I'm writing the script, and as I'm writing the script, I'm becoming a better writer, and I'm becoming more in tuned and more calibrated to my system. That if I were in a similar situation, I would find a new level of maturity to where I wouldn't need that, or I wouldn't have gotten myself into that position. So because sometimes we can look at mistakes and then we cling to it, and we believe that the mistake was a mistake and it's changing the trajectory of your life.
Right.
But if you're looking at it from the sense of it is changing it, but you're not stuck to it, you don't come to a point that you're stuck to that conclusion.
The other thing with being in partnership in this is that you're not sticking to that either, because sometimes people have their misstep or their mistake, and we're the one, if we're hanging on to that mistake, we're throwing shade their direction. Why do we want to do that? We're letting them figure out their script. Why would we want to hold anything but just neutral or buoyant energy while people are, doing those things? So those are things that we're becoming more and more conscious about in our energy work and everything.
So we're designing and finding the rules of the game as we go. So one of the thing about being easygoing people is sometimes it makes it difficult to make decisions. Or we also love the idea of being ourselves and being able to change our mind or so we had a situation come up the other day where Chelsea wanted to do something, and so she introduced doing it, And I was like, okay, that then I had my part in it. I had to get ready to have my part in it. And then the next thing I know, Chelsea's just sitting and like doing other things, and I'm like, I'm I'm ready to go. So we discovered that it's like, okay, let's look at where you were in relationship to wanting to do this thing. And so we made this discovery of this idea of, okay, let's have a system of zero being buoyant, because we're not doing this whole
Right.
down part. It's 0, and then 1, I'm leaning to wanting to do it. 2, I want to do it, and 3, I really want to do it.
Let's go.
And so I was like, okay, so let's go back to your emotional system and your internal guidance system. What did you experience? And so she said, oh yeah, I was like a 3.
I started as a 3.
Started as a 3.
And then developed into a different number.
You were at like a 1. You said you were at a 1.
1.5.
And I was like, well, see, there's the gap. Because I had prepared myself for her 3.
And I never communicated.
So she went to 1, and I'm sitting there going like, I trying to do your thing, and then all of a sudden you're not doing your thing. Anyway, it's given us this amazing device to work with each other's. Everything we do is to help each other understand our internal emotional guidance system that's guiding us on this path. And that is that, like, if I want to do something, okay, what level are you at? And it's like, okay, I can calibrate myself, but then I'm also calibrating it with my partner Chelsea. And so it's just been amazing to see how these kind of things are so necessary when we want to keep we want to keep doing the thing that we want to discover in this lifetime, which is consciousness, making the unconscious conscious, and experiencing this life as greatly and as amazingly as we possibly can. But then when we bring in other people, it's like, okay, now I've got another variable. But what we're finding is, if we have guidelines that are true to our own, it's not our thoughts. We're really focused on our sensations. It's like, how do you feel about this? And that just makes, like, that's so amazing, because it really helps me dial in my own system so that I can accurately tell Chelsea if I say something. Sometimes she'll interpret. I think there was one last night where you interpreted me thinking something, and there was absolutely no way that anything that was coming out of my mouth was anything less than buoyant. I was like flying in an air balloon. I was so happy and high that, like, if she thought I was giving her some kind of prickly like poke at her, it was impossible in the inside that I have. And that just told Chelsea, okay, well then I want to reinterpret what came out of your mouth from a different point of view. Do you ever misinterpret? What somebody, like, how you think somebody said something to you?
All the time.
That's kind of a
sometimes when we have those previous conversations, or we've had an encounter, and then that will seep into our now.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. And that's what we're trying to suss up. That's what we're trying to find, are these programming from behind that we're trying to not have part of our ride. That we both that's how you become more conscious, is you continue to go, oh, okay, I've got this belief, or I've got this. People use the subconscious. I'm not a big fan of that term, but I understand the nature of that. That's what you're doing, is you're trying to find these thoughts that are still there, these ideas, these conclusions that we've come to. And it's like, okay, I need to reevaluate now all the time. Like, I want to always be reevaluating the now in every moment. So we thought we'd just share these ideas with you, life changers and game changers for us, and really makes life and the abstract nature of being a human, thoughts, feelings, all of that stuff, and really starts helping each other to really find their own guidance system and then make the most out of what she and I are experiencing together in our relationship.
Yes. Interpreting the world much cleaner and clearer.
Yeah, clarity feels great. And so a lot of creativity spawns from it.
Yes.
We hope you're having an amazing day.